Welcome to the Insurance Marketing Masterclass, where we discuss how to market and grow your insurance agency. I'm your host, Joshua Farley. Have you ever looked at what it would actually cost to market your agency to the next level and said, you know what, forget it, I'll just keep doing what I've been doing, no thanks? Well, today we're going to look at those numbers so that you can start reaping the benefits of a well-laid marketing plan. All right, welcome to the show. So I'm sure many of you have had, a quote come across your desk or a proposal given by a marketing agency at some point, and you've probably said, wow, like, how can I justify paying this? And that's, obviously you're looking at your budget, you understand your budget, but there's probably more there than what meets the eye. And I think what happens with a lot of people is marketing is like a black box, like what are you getting out of versus what you're putting into it? And, how do you calculate that? And at the end of the year, you want to see a profit, of course. But one thing I really would stress that you look at is granted you want to see a profit at the end of the year, but what is really the total value of the account's gain through your marketing? And I think a lot of people miss this. I believe that there is a drive to see, all the profit kind of up front. And like I said, with it being a black box, you have a new account. How long are you going to keep that account? You may not know that. And so that's a part of what I really want to look at today. So we're going to look at customer lifetime value, CLV, CLTV. It has a few different acronyms, and there's even more ways to calculate it, especially, across different industries. But even in the insurance industry, there's a couple of key ways that this can be calculated. So first though, what is customer lifetime value? And so the basic gist of this is you retain customers for a certain length of time, okay? And that may be 5 years, that may be 7 years. But on average, you have an average time that you retain an individual customer. And this is where, the better your CRM is, the more data you have in your CRM, the better decision you can obviously make. I mean, that's why we have data. That's why we keep data, so we can make good decisions as business owners. So why is this important? Well, being able to, know your CLTV is going to give you the ability to understand how much an average customer is worth, and it will allow you to make an educated decision on how much marketing budget to put into getting an individual customer. CLTV is the beginning of kind of reverse engineering your marketing plan. And it's also the beginning of reverse engineering your growth objectives. So knowing where you want to go, you can backtrack your numbers, obviously, like you would in sales, just the same in marketing. So, and because it uses your own financial numbers, you can get a better idea with more certainty of, what your customer lifetime value really is. So let's go into how do we calculate customer lifetime value. And there's multiple ways to do this. I believe I already mentioned, by industry, there's multiple ways. And yet even within the insurance industry, there's a couple of really key ways that you can analyze this. So I'm going to give you two basic ways. And the second way, there's a couple different ways within that same way. So the first one we'll call the simple way. And this is just to get kind of a high level of, customer lifetime value. So you would take your net revenue or your commissions and you would divide it by your number of active accounts. Now this will give you, your average customer value based off of, your numbers. And then you want to multiply that by your average retention rate in years. So if you have 1.8 million in revenues and you have roughly, let's say, 3,500 accounts, and you have an average retention rate of 8 years, then you would have a customer lifetime value roughly around $4,000. Okay, so for every customer you bring in, you're going to get $4,000 out of them over 8 years. So this would give you a better idea now when you could go to say, well, how much will I spend and what will I budget towards getting another customer? So as I mentioned before, this is a very high level, way to, calculate your customer lifetime value. So let's look at a couple of the targeted methods. Now, the simple way that we just did, that really encompasses all lines of business, everything personal, everything commercial. And depending on how you have your agency set up, maybe you only deal in certain lines, but a lot of people want to get a better idea. If you have personal lines and commercial lines that you sell at your agency, which I think most agencies do, then you can split those. So you want to look at your commissions off your personal lines separate from your. Now, really, this is the same calculation, except you just would take your numbers. So instead of your full net revenue or your full commissions, it would be the commissions off your personal lines or commercial lines, and dividing that by your active accounts, and then multiplying that by obviously the number associated with your retention rate for personal lines or commercial lines, because it's probably different from each side of your business. And next, we have an even more finite way of looking at it. This is where you can calculate each line of business. So, say homeowners insurance, for example, you would basically do the same calculation as above, but you would just do it with, information relevant to your homeowners insurance. So, commissions. So you take your net revenue from homeowners insurance commissions and divide it by the active homeowners accounts, and then multiply it by your average retention rate for a homeowner policy, or customer, I would say, not by the policy, obviously. But that way you're getting, a really good, idea of each line of business. But keep in mind, when it comes to aggregating this into your overall, like say you're going to do each personal line and each commercial line, then you're going to populate them all into one, aggregate score, if you will. But depending on how you do it, you may need to divide out, the fact that you have multiple lines per business when it comes down to one customer, because you may have, your homeowner policy account is also being calculated in, with your auto insurance and business insurance and whatever else. So do keep that in mind if you're going to do it that way. I really like the overall, the first one I showed, I mentioned, where you just kind of get like a simple idea, because I think it gives you a really good snapshot rather of what's going on. So next, after you have your customer lifetime value, you need to start looking at determining a budget for a single customer. I've always heard it said in most industries that the average cost for marketing and sales is anywhere from 20 to 25% of revenue. So, and I've heard that multiple times. And I was looking up, some research on, what is the average that most people spend on the marketing side of that. And it's interesting because it's as high as 16%, depending on the company, and on average, it runs from about 11 to 16. So, you can kind of take that however you look at your numbers and crunch it, but that's about what you should be spending, somewhere in that ballpark. And when you look at that, that's probably a shocker to most people, because that's probably not what many of you are spending. But this is the way people make money. They spend money on marketing. They get a result out of it, and obviously that last part is crucial. But insurance is a little different though than most industries. As I mentioned before, marketing and sales is 20 to 25%. But in all reality, you have producers in your office, you have CSRs in your office, and most of the people in your office sell. So a whole chunk of your, HR overhead is, your costs there, is it's going to go beyond 25%. And I would say it's going to be more around the, somewhere to 30 to 40% of your net revenue. And that's probably just for your sales salaries, or for the salaries of the people in your office. You know your numbers, and I'm just more focused on the marketing number here, really, because that's really what I'm talking about. You're going to spend salary amounts, how you spend them, but in short, it really depends on the agency when it comes to marketing spend on a percentage of net revenue or your percentage of your commissions. But I would say just keep in mind that 11 to 16% really is a realistic number. So kind of calculate that and figure out kind of what you would be spending. So in the analogy from earlier where I said if you have 1.8 million in commissions and you have 3,500 active accounts and you have a retention rate of 8 years, your annual customer value would be 514, and your customer lifetime value would be 4,000, a little over. And so at 11%, you would have a customer acquisition budget of roughly $450. So that would be saying that you can spend $450 on acquiring a new customer. So let's take, for instance, Facebook advertising, because Facebook advertising is always perceived as probably a greater black box than marketing at large. But when it comes to your customer acquisition budget of $452, if you close at 5%, now keep in mind that if you're used to getting, referrals, you're probably closing at 80, 85, 90%, maybe more of the referrals that come through to you. It's a bit different with marketing, but let's just say that you're able to close even 5% of them. You have a customer acquisition budget of $22 roughly. And that would give you the ability to get 20 different leads from Facebook, through their advertising. But let's say you get that down to, let's say $5, or no, let's say $6, because that's what's sitting here on my spreadsheet. You could get 75 leads. If you in $6, you should definitely be able to get leads for about $6. You can probably get it cheaper than that, depending on what you're offering or what's associated with your ads and how well it is, how you convert. All that goes into play. But if you can spend $6 per lead, you can get 75 leads. So the question is if you had 75 leads come across your desk or the people in your office's desk, and you reached out to them and called and said, my name's so-and-so, just noticed you signed up on the website, wanted to, whatever your spiel is, however you talk to prospects, over the phone, then you strike up conversation and find out who they're using, what their needs are, how you can help them. Out of 75 clients, could you close even one? And that's the thing. Out of 75, not clients, prospects, out of 75 prospects, if you can close one of them, then you're still hitting your customer acquisition budget maximum, and realistically, you can probably get leads cheaper than this, and you can probably close them faster than that. So that'll give you some idea of how to calculate, this type of thing and what goes into it. But that's pretty much it for customer lifetime value and, determining the budget for a single customer and what that really means when it comes to making a decision, as in the decision to advertise with Facebook. Because a lot of people look at that and be like, oh my gosh, it's expensive, and really, like all marketing, when you look at this, it seems expensive until you look at what you can actually spend per customer. And I use the Facebook advertising example because Facebook advertising is very easy to track. it's not that complicated. You get certain numbers and you know where your conversion rate is, and you can calculate all this up in a spreadsheet and make better decisions in the future. But anyways, so that is it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day. What a great episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, head over to the website at blue-phoenix.net/IMM. That's IMM for Insurance Marketing Masterclass. And if you have questions or topics that you'd like to have answered and discussed, be sure to request a topic on the page. Until next time.